Slobodan Milosevic declares peace in Kosovo and calls for a ceasefire. But the U.S. and its NATO allies say not so fast. NATO's terms of a deal? Milosevic's total and unconditional surrender. But as NATO bombs continue to fall and the refugee crisis worsens, are we anywhere near an endgame to the Kosovo crisis? That and GOP presidential hopeful Pat Buchanan coming up on the Beltway Boys. But first, the latest headlines from the Fox News desk in New York.
Hello, everyone. I'm Todd Connor. The U.S. is intensifying NATO firepower against Yugoslavia. 82 more American transports, tankers, radar jammers, and attack aircraft are heading for the conflict over Kosovo. That means Americans will be piloting close to 480 of NATO's nearly 700 planes in this operation. How much damage has been done is still being debated. NATO says its bombing has crippled the Serb supply lines and communications ability. Belgrade denies that. What is indisputable is the continuing exodus of ethnic Albanians from Kosovo, more than 500,000 in 2.5 weeks. Refugees reaching the borders are telling stories of atrocities back home. One man says there is no one left alive in his village. These accounts contradict Yugoslav claims of a ceasefire in Kosovo. And now let's take a look at who will be making headlines tomorrow. Here's Tony Snow with a preview of Fox News Sunday.
Thanks, Todd. Bullseyes in Belgrade. Do we really have to hit the ground to win the war? Senators John McCain and John Kerry tell us. China stole our secrets and tried to corrupt our elections. So why is the American president saluting the Chinese prime minister? We'll quiz Senator Fred Thompson tomorrow on Fox News Sunday.
All right, thank you, Tony. Getting on a plane and flying from here to there will soon get more expensive. Some of the country's biggest airlines raised their prices 3%. Continental Airlines kicked off the fare hikes, and Delta and United followed. Some of the other major carriers haven't yet announced what they intend to do. And tennis pro Andre Agassi and Suddenly Susan's Brooke Shields are suddenly Splitsville. Agassi says they filed for divorce, but he refused to give any details. The couple's 2-year anniversary is just 10 days away. Agassi made the announcement from China, where he's competing in the Hong Kong Open. Next update at the top of the hour. Stay tuned now for the Beltway Boys with Mort Kondracki and Fred Barnes.
I'm Fred Barnes. And I'm Mort Kondracki, and we're the Beltway Boys. Fred, President Clinton's policy in Kosovo is headed toward catastrophe. Our policy is just to bomb. President Clinton is afraid to use ground troops. He's not even willing to do airdrops to the Kosovars. And what I'm afraid is going to happen is that we're going to bomb Serbia to smithereens. But meanwhile, all the Kosovars who are left in Kosovo, 700,000 people, are going to starve to death. Well, look, I agree with all of that. And there are worse things. They're not worse than all the Kosovars starving to death. I didn't mean that. But the Apache helicopters they need down there to bring from Germany down to take out the Serbian tanks, it's going to take a month to get them there. That's pathetic. There's fighting inside the Clinton administration over what to do. The Russians are cracking up here and threatening to go to war. And Clinton, the president, will not even consider planning for possible use of land troops at some point. Look, if Clinton really thinks that Slobodan Milosevic is a junior Hitler, and he is, and if he thinks that ethnic cleansing is akin to genocide, and it is, then what Clinton should do is to go to Congress and ask for a declaration of war against Serbia and go at this thing as if he means to win it. Boy, 2 words, moral authority. Clinton doesn't have it. Why are people paying attention to Senator John McCain of Arizona? He fought in Vietnam. He was a POW there. He's got moral authority. Bill Clinton was a draft dodger and still is lying about what he was doing back then. All right. Let's see who's up and who's down this week. Up, Slobodan Milosevic. Down, President Clinton. Milosevic ethnically cleanses Kosovo despite NATO bombings, while Clinton's popularity dips, though he stands firm on Milosevic's phony peace offer. Here's President Clinton on Friday.
If we settle for half measures for Mr. Milosevic, we will get nothing more. And what we have from Mr. Milosevic today is not even partial compliance, but the illusion of partial compliance. We and our allies have properly rejected it.
You know, Clinton is not responsible for the atrocities in Kosovo. Milosevic is. On the other hand, NATO and U.S. planning has been atrocious. We clearly were not prepared for the refugee flows. Those people were sitting around on freezing on hillsides and stuff like that. Where the Apache helicopters, you know, there are only 24 of them assigned to this thing. They won't be ready for a month. I mean, all of this
Well, you could get them there in less than a month.
I doubt that, but, you know. Anyway, up. Secretary of State William Cohen, down. Secretary of Defense William Cohen, down. Secretary of State Madeleine Albright. Cohen is dispatched to Europe to give a pep talk to NATO allies and grant Supreme Allied Commander Wesley Clark's request for more firepower, while Albright is being blamed for underestimating Milosevic's resolve and blindly pushing for military action. Here's Albright's response to the charge that this is her war.
I've lived in this town a long time. There is a very strange activity that goes on here and in New York, which is called cover your you-know-what. And I don't want to engage in that.
Maybe she doesn't want to, but her aides are doing it all over Washington and at the UN and so on. You know, the point is about her, the Pentagon is what, and folks over there are the people who are really after her because they think, here she's Secretary of State and she knows nothing about warfare and yet is guaranteeing, you know, that after a couple days of bombing, old Milosevic will collapse. And he didn't. But remember, here's what you have to remember about her. She's a McGovernite. She was against the war in Vietnam, against the Gulf War, against aid to the Contras, and pro-nuclear freeze. Now, Mort, you're a liberal, but none of those was your position.
I'm a liberal. Well, it's news to me. Anyway,
You used to be a liberal.
you know, the thing is that what really worries me is that the Clinton administration is beginning to resemble a circular firing squad.
Right.
And it's the Pentagon who's attacking Albright. It's Albright's counterattacking. Somebody's leaking stories about Pentagon unpreparedness.
Right.
I mean, this is a time when the administration needs to be unified against Milosevic and unified to keep the American people unified.
I think all the leaks are true, actually. Up. Senate Majority Leader Trent Lott, down. Chinese Premier Zhu Rongji. Lott's opposition to letting China into the World Trade Organization sinks any prospect of a deal for now as Xi leaves Washington empty-handed, blaming the lack of an agreement on the, quote, political atmosphere in Washington.
You know, this was a loss for Clinton, too. He's a loser in this because his policy has been, let's trade with China, that will bring about political change in China. And Xi, who is one of the relative good guys in China, made a lot of trade concessions, not enough. And Clinton, that wasn't really why Clinton didn't go for this deal.
Relative good guys.
Yeah, well, there aren't too many.
Yeah.
You know,
well, look, here, but wait a minute.
Yeah.
Let me say something about this. I think Clinton, if he had taken this WTO thing to Congress, and I'm against it, I think he could have won on that. I really do. Yeah, would have the entire business community behind him, but not one key group in the Democratic coalition, and that's organized labor. He's afraid to go up against organized labor. It's as simple as that.
You know, one person he might have had with him is George W. Bush, who I was at a press conference with him last week, and all he mentioned about WTO was trade, open trade in China. Didn't mention Taiwan, did not mention human rights, didn't mention any of those linkage issues.
That's not going to fly when he's a primary candidate, because that'll alienate a lot of Republicans, really. Yeah. Believe me. Anyway, up next, George W. Bush speaks out on Kosovo. Again, stay with us.
I wasn't always this good looking.
Before Hal came to LensCrafters, he never owned a pair of prescription sunglasses.
In my eyes, I didn't even think they could make prescription sunglasses. Figured I could buy with squinting.
The first thing I did was show Hal a bunch of the latest styles. I searched until I found a pair that really suited his face. We had them ready in about an hour.
These are great.
And I know he loved our prices.
LensCrafters, helping people see better 1 hour at a time. Hal, you can take them off now.
Which after-shower spray cleaner leaves no dull residue? The answer is as clear as the label on the bottle. New Shower Shine from the Scrubbing Bubbles. They work hard after every shower, so you don't have to. If you're not using New Shower Shine after-shower spray cleaner, the forecast for your shower is mostly cloudy. New Shower Shine from the Scrubbing Bubbles. They work hard after every shower, so you don't have to.
Is this a smart investment? Janice crunched all the numbers. They add up if the development opens on time. So every 2 weeks, Janice comes out here. Every 2 weeks, Janice sees how it's really going. Every 2 weeks, it's right on schedule. So Janice invests. The doors open on time, and Janice got in on the ground floor. Looking to build your portfolio? Get there. Janice Mutual Funds.
Power. 24 hours, 7 days. The most powerful name in news brings you the world. Fox News Channel, the power to bring you the people and places, from mega markets to emerging nations, reports that make a difference. Power to cover the events that shape the planet, the global forces changing your life. The power of Fox News Channel. News and information, fair and balanced. The most powerful name in news, Fox News Channel. We report, you decide.
Saturday night, Milosevic. How much of a beating is he willing to take? And are we prepared to go the distance? It's all highly debatable on a special 2-hour edition of Hannity and Combs. Powerful primetime Saturday night, only on the Fox News Channel. Saturday night, bombing raids, destruction, anguish. What has it all added up to so far? And what lies ahead now? Shepard Smith hosts a live 2-hour special, Conflict in Kosovo. Powerful primetime Saturday night, only on the Fox News Channel.
Welcome back to the Beltway Boys. Let's take a look at the Fox Hot 10, our weekly roundup of the top 10 presidential candidates in 2000. In the first 5, John McCain moves up a spot to number 4, still riding high on his foreign policy credentials as the Kosovo crisis continues. And in the second 5, Pat Buchanan, who made lots of hay this week with the Chinese premier's visit and who we'll talk to in a couple minutes, moves up to number 9. And kicking up trail dust this week, George W. Bush. After weeks of criticism that his initial Kosovo statement was, quote-unquote, Clintonian, Bush sharpened up his rhetoric on Thursday after a series of meetings with his foreign policy advisors. Here is a much tougher George Bush on how he would define the Kosovo mission.
I would define the mission as to restoring Kosovo so that the Kosovoans can move back in and at the same time teach Mr. Milosevic that the NATO and its ally, the United States, will not tolerate genocide.
Morton, you spent most of the week down in Austin talking to Bush and his people. Has he got it right now on Kosovo?
Well, it's not Kosovoians or whatever it was that he still needs a little skull session on that. But his position, you know, is now essentially the McCain position, which is that we got to win this thing, that we shouldn't rule out ground troops. Though interestingly, neither McCain nor Bush says send in the ground troops the way Richard Lugar does.
Well, so what did he say? I mean, what did you find out that's new and interesting about him?
Well, you will not like this. I mean, the position on China is not that they're strategic adversaries or competitors or something like that. It is trade first, trade last, and trade always. You know, and
I don't matter on this. It's people like Gary Bauer.
Well, I know. I don't think Gary Bauer. I don't think Gary Bauer's going to like it.
Well,
I really don't.
It sounds like he's not. He will bedevil him on it. Look, here's the question everybody has. George W. Bush is going to actually begin campaigning for the presidency outside Texas, June 12th in Iowa. The Texas legislature will have finished. And
right.
Are Bush and his team ready for this?
I think that the team is ready. I will have to wait and see about Bush. I don't know whether the Iowa organization's ready. That's where he's going to start going. And I don't think they're up to speed there in Iowa yet, but maybe. Up next, Republican presidential candidate Pat Buchanan. Stay with us.
This program is brought to you by American Express.
We started this business with a green thumb, a vivid imagination,
and a lot of hard work.
But before long, I could see we needed help, financial help.
So I called American Express Small Business Services.
They helped us with equipment financing so we could keep on growing.
And with the corporate card, we finally got a handle on expenses.
1-800-SUCCESS was the best call we ever made.
With American Express, we've learned what it's like to have a partner you can count on.
And a brother.
Do you, Yahoo?
Craftsman has come up with another smart solution that simplifies projects and saves you time. The Craftsman Speedlock Drill and Driver System, exclusively from Sears. This patented Speedlock Quick Connector is the heart of the system. It fits any drill and works with keyed or keyless chucks. The Speedlock's simple click-in, click-out action makes changing bits so easy you can do it with one hand without rechucking. With the collar snapped back, the bit is securely locked, and you're ready to drill with any of the 7 hex shank drill bits that are included with the system. The Craftsman Speedlock system also includes this magnetic screw guide. It makes driving screws easier, faster, and safer. And you'll really love the screw guide sleeve. It acts as a stabilizer and guide, so you don't have to use your fingers to hold screws while you drive them, and they go in straight every time. The screw guide comes with 7 different screwdriver bits, so you can work with Phillips, slotted, or square head screws. At just $19.99, the Craftsman Speedlock system is essential for anyone who owns a drill. Choosing the right tool can make any job go more smoothly. And with the Craftsman Speedlock system, drilling and driving is faster, safer, and easier. Whether you're working around the house, remodeling, or building crafts, Speedlock saves time and energy. The exclusive innovative design turns any drill into an efficient tool you can count on for high-quality performance every time. The Craftsman Speedlock system makes work easier, and with its revolutionary quick-change design, it's the fast, convenient way to tackle all types of drilling and driving projects. It's just one more example of how Craftsman makes anything possible. And because it's from Sears, your satisfaction is guaranteed or your money back.
Call now to order your 16-piece Speedlock system for only $19.99 plus shipping and handling. You'll receive the quick connector, screw guide, 7 Speedlock drill bits, 7 screwdriver bits, and a convenient storage case. Use your Sears card or other credit card and call 1-800-235-7007. That's 1-800-235-7007. Call right now.
Welcome back to the Beltway Boys. Joining us now to talk about Kosovo, China, and his bid for the White House is Republican presidential hopeful Pat Buchanan. Welcome, Pat. Glad to have you here.
Thank you, Fred Mort.
Pat, what do you think will be the end game in Kosovo? And in other words, how will the war wind up, and what will be the political repercussions back here?
I think the ultimate end game in the Balkans, Fred, is going to be a breakdown of Yugoslavia basically into its ethnic components. I think all the Serbs will eventually wind up under Serb rule, the Albanians under Albanian rule, the Croatians, Slovenians, and so forth. I think we've got a long way to go, but I would certainly argue against the introduction of American ground troops into Kosovo because I don't think it's going to change that end game at all, and I think it will bog down a significant part of the American army.
Pat, I think what Fred meant by that question was, how do you think that the Clinton policy in Kosovo will play itself out, and what will be the political ramifications of that here?
I think the Clinton, I think that the president genuinely does not want to introduce ground troops into Kosovo for the reasons that he does believe he will never get them out. It will divide America. The country's not united behind this war, and the military is not. I think, therefore, the president will continue to hammer Milosevic until it can be said that we have a victory, we pounded him down, and then we'll go into negotiations. Rambouillet is dead. My sense is you will get some kind of partition out of this, with the Serbs being allowed to keep the holy places and the sacred places that are sacred to them in any event, and the rest of it becoming autonomous on the way to being independent.
So does Clinton declare a victory and try to represent this like he did in Bosnia as a success, and therefore gain politically out of this and gore to?
Well, I think this case is different. I think he could claim a diplomatic success in Bosnia, but in this one, I think it's going to be very, very hard. I think because I think it's a complete debacle, quite frankly. It's a political debacle right now, a humanitarian catastrophe. We've estranged and alienated the Russians and set loose nationalism there. You've destabilized Montenegro and Macedonia, and you could have this thing still break down into a general war. Okay. I think he wants to cut the best deal he can and get out.
Pat, what about two of your opponents in the presidential race for the Republican presidential nomination next year? George W. Bush, governor of Texas, and Senator John McCain. Now, McCain has been leading the charge to have ground troops sent in, and Governor Bush has now said that's okay with him sending ground troops in. Will there be any backlash against them? I mean, other than from you.
Look, I'm not talking about a backlash, but it seems to me to be utterly, I question the morality and wisdom of sending 100,000 American ground troops to redeem a failed policy and to save the reputations, faces, and careers of the people, and I would include Ms. Albright, who are responsible for this debacle. I think someone ought to step forward and say, in effect, it was a mistake. I cannot believe they anticipated this human rights catastrophe. It was a mistake. I'm responsible, and I resign. I mean, the idea to send American soldiers to die...
That never happens in Washington anymore.
Well, let me tell you, Fred, I'm serious here. Yeah. You do not send an army of Americans to save faces and careers and reputations when a blunder's been made.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Pat, let me ask you about your campaign. You don't seem to have much of a campaign structure or apparatus. What's your plan for winning?
Well, quite simply, we have an extremely good organization already in the last...
It doesn't have your sister in it this time.
Well, we got yes, we do, but we got an organization in Alaska. We got we got a new chair in Louisiana. We haven't set it up in Iowa, but we got a new chair we announced this week in New Hampshire. We're further along than we were last time. We got a structure out in Virginia that includes a chairman.
Okay, I accept that. But we're finished.
You fellows got to do some reporting.
You finished last time, 96. You finished second in Iowa and first in New Hampshire.
Right.
What about this time?
Well, if I do that well and win New Hampshire, I think I'll go on to the nomination, because I don't believe that any candidate, including the governor of Texas, who's very popular, has the tremendous solid depth and total support and backing of the establishment. I think George Bush clearly is the front runner, and if he breaks out and does very well, he's the favorite and he could go the distance. But if he stumbles, I think I've got as good a chance as anyone, Fred.
Pat, just quick. You know, do you view China as our strategic adversary in the 21st century, the way Russia was, the Soviet Union was?
No, we don't want a war with China. We don't want a Cold War, but it is nonsensical for anyone to call China a strategic partner. And when they're pointing missiles at your people, your allies, and troops, to give them a $57 billion trade surplus gratis, it seems to me is naivete at its worst.
Okay, thanks, Pat, very much.
Thanks
for joining us. Joining us now to talk about how the Kosovo crisis is affecting public opinion is our favorite pollster, John Zogby. Hi, John. How are you?
Good. How are you guys doing?
Good. Explain this to me out of your latest poll. Support for Clinton's policy in Kosovo is going up. People are even willing to see ground troops used, but his personal approval rating is going down, and Kosovo is obviously dominating the environment here.
The president's sort of been in the background here, and the images have played out in the last week to 10 days. The image of Milosevic, our poll says 84% see Milosevic as dangerous, a dictator as Hitler or Stalin. The image of the three hostages, which is personalized this, it's brought it the name, it's a face, a real families, real hometown. And thirdly, the image, obviously, of the suffering Kosovars, which have been very powerful.
But, John, I mean, Clinton has been on the tube virtually every day saying, you know, we're going to persist and we're going to sustain this effort. So why the fall in his popularity?
He's clearly been damaged. There's a sum total of 13, 14 months of the Monica story where what we now see are his numbers were where they were before the Monica story, you know, in the low 50s in terms of approval, which is really about right. This is a wounded president with no mandate.
Wait a minute, John, there's something that Mort probably didn't want to ask you, that maybe there's some evidence in your polls that the American people feel that the president is not comfortable handling foreign policy, that he's awkward, that he's unsure of himself.
Well, clearly, you know, polls that were taken 10 days ago indicate that there was no majority. It was not anything that President Clinton said which brought this policy to majority support. It is events that are driving this to the majority.
Okay, well, let me ask you about Republicans. They seem to be divided on this issue. Is it moving, say, away from Pat Buchanan and getting out of Kosovo in favor of John McCain and perhaps putting in land troops?
You know, John McCain has really helped himself. He has distinguished himself. He's gotten on more talk shows than Bill Ginsburg ever dreamed of getting on. And on top of that, what he's doing is he is talking about where the majority of the American people are. You know, the American people understand genocide. The American people understand dictators. It took them a longer time to understand that in Bosnia, but this has been especially poignant in the last week. McCain's numbers are not dramatically higher, but he's showing up now, at least in the 8 or 9 way race.
John, I'm looking at your poll from earlier this week. It says Bush 53, Dole 12, McCain, Quayle, Forbes all at 4. I mean, where's any bounce at all? for
Well,
McCain?
it's a little more like lint on the carpet than a bounce, but basically McCain was an asterisk or a 1 before that. Now he's where Quayle and Forbes are.
Lint on the carpet. That's a good one. Hey, wait, but no, I want to ask you this, and that is, you know, one of the things I think the public has really sort of figured out what they're for. They're a little unsure of Clinton. They don't like Milosevic. They want to do something to save all those refugees. But when asked this question, that I've seen it in other polls, I'm not sure whether it's in yours, and that is, does the president have a clear plan for Kosovo? About 3/4 of the people say no.
That's right. They do say no. You know, we asked an interesting question. We asked top of mind, you know, open-ended, what would you do? And interestingly, we asked that before any other questions. And a majority told us that they wanted some kind of military action, mostly bombing, and to a somewhat lesser degree ground troops if necessary. So the American people have an intensity about this, but it is certainly not a bump for Clinton. He is a damaged president.
Thanks, John. When we return, Mort and I will give you the latest buzz. Stay tuned.
Pizza. It's not delivery, it's DiGiorno, the frozen pizza that bakes up fresh, like pizzeria pizza.
I'll never know.
Pillsbury presents the easy way to make fresh baked garlic bread. Spread the garlic, bake them up, and in minutes you've got fresh baked garlic bread. Pillsbury garlic breadsticks.
Now we're talking fresh.
You've got this huge customer. They're so huge, sometimes they don't even know when they've received a shipment. Whose problem is this? Yours. That's why you ship UPS, because only UPS Total Track captures signatures electronically. Then you can use UPS online software to see your customer's actual signature. So when they say, "We never got it," you can say not only did you get it, but you don't dot your I's. UPS, moving at the speed of business.
At Invesco, we know that before we invest your money with a company, we look deep into that company. We know with whom they do business, where they do business, and what kind of business they do. And we even learn a thing or two about who they really are. Invesco, a family of no-load funds. Over 65 years of experience, a global perspective. You should know what Invesco knows.
Hey.
Philips High-Definition Home Theater.
The conflict in Kosovo. Sunday night, the blasting continues. Will there ever be peace? Live at 7, straight talk about Kosovo on a special 2-hour edition of the O'Reilly Factor. Then at 10, the refugees. Will they ever be able to go home? Perspectives on a special live 2-hour edition of the Cryer Report. Powerful prime time, Sunday, only on the Fox News Channel.
You talk to his campaign people, and they think it's a two-man race already, Bush and McCain. But he's done one thing that is the most important thing if you're running for president, and that's look presidential. He certainly looked in the whole Kosovo thing more presidential than Bill Clinton. But after all, he was a POW who fought in Vietnam, and Bill Clinton lacks moral authority because he refused to fight there.
Yeah, I agree that John McCain does deserve to be in the top tier of the Republican candidates, except that those numbers never seem to change. I mean, there's
the poll numbers?
Yeah, the poll numbers are single digits and low single digits, and George W. Bush does have pretty much a juggernaut going. I mean, both financially and politically. He's going to be up above 100 members of Congress pretty soon. That's half. That's half the Congress. It's,
Well, the
it's
poll
really
numbers,
tough. That's all the time we've got for the Beltway Boys this week. Watch us on Britt Hume's Special Report weekday evenings at 6 o'clock. And join us next weekend when the boys will be back in town.